Day 57. Numbers 12-14. Then Miriam and Aaron criticized Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married, for he had taken a Cushite wife. Does the Lord speak only through Moses? They said. Does he not also speak through us? And the Lord heard this. Now Moses was a very humble man, more so than any man on the face of the earth. And suddenly the Lord said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, You three, come out to the tent of meeting. So the three went out, and the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud, stood at the entrance to the tent, and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When both of them had stepped forward, he said, Hear now my words, if there is a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will reveal myself to him in a vision, I will speak to him in a dream. But this is not so with my servant Moses, he is faithful in all my house. I speak with him face to face, clearly and not in riddles, he sees the form of the Lord. Why then were you unafraid to speak against my servant Moses? So the anger of the Lord burned against them, and he departed. As the cloud lifted from above the tent, suddenly Miriam became leprous, white as snow. Aaron turned toward her, saw that she was leprous, and said to Moses, My Lord, please do not hold against us the sin we have so foolishly committed. Please do not let her be like a stillborn infant whose flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb. So Moses cried out to the Lord, O God, please heal her. But the Lord answered Moses, If her father had but spit in her face, would she not have been in disgrace for 7 days? Let her be confined outside the camp for 7 days, after that she may be brought back in. So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not move on until she was brought in again. After that, the people set out from Hazeroth and camped in the wilderness of Paran. And the Lord said to Moses, Send out for yourself men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. From each of their fathers' tribes send one man who is a leader among them. So at the consent of the Lord, Moses sent them out from the wilderness of Paran. All the men were leaders of the Israelites, and these were their names, from the tribe of Reuben, Shammua son of Zachar, from the tribe of Simeon, Shaphat son of Hori, from the tribe of Judah, Caleb son of Jephunneh, from the tribe of Issachar, Igal son of Joseph, from the tribe of Ephraim. Hoshea son of Nun, from the tribe of Benjamin, Palti son of Raphu, from the tribe of Zebulun, Gaddiel son of Sodi, from the tribe of Manasseh, a tribe of Joseph, Guddi son of Susa, from the tribe of Dan, Amiel son of Gemali, from the tribe of Asher. Sthur son of Michael, from the tribe of Naphtali, Nabai son of Vophsi, and from the tribe of Gad, Joel son of Maki. These were the names of the men Moses sent to spy out the land, and Moses gave to Hoshea son of Nun the name Joshua. When Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, he told them, Go up through the Negev and into the hill country. See what the land is like and whether its people are strong or weak, few or many. Is the land where they live good or bad? Are the cities where they dwell open camps or fortifications? Is the soil fertile or unproductive? Are there trees in it or not? Be courageous, and bring back some of the fruit of the land. It was the season for the first ripe grapes. So they went up and spied out the land from the wilderness of Zin as far as Rehob, toward Lebo Hamath. They went up through the Negev and came to Hebron, where Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmah, the descendants of Anak, dwelled. It had been built 7 years before Zoan in Egypt. When they came to the valley of Eshcol, they cut down a branch with a single cluster of grapes, which they carried on a pole between 2 men. They also took some pomegranates and figs. Because of the cluster of grapes the Israelites cut there, that place was called the Valley of Eshcol. After 40 days the men returned from spying out the land, and they went back to Moses, Aaron, and the whole congregation of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back a report for the whole congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. And they gave this account to Moses, We went into the land to which you sent us, and indeed, it is flowing with milk and honey. Here is some of its fruit. Nevertheless, the people living in the land are strong, and the cities are large and fortified. We even saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites live in the land of the Negev, the Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites live in the hill country, and the Canaanites lie by the sea and along the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, We must go up and take possession of the land. For we can certainly conquer it. But the men who had gone up with him replied, We cannot go up against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they gave the Israelites a bad report about the land that they had spied out. The land we explored devours its inhabitants, and all the people we saw there are great in stature. We even saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak that come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own sight, and we must have seemed the same to them. Then the whole congregation lifted up their voices and cried out, and that night the people wept. All the Israelites grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in this wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us into this land to fall by the sword? Our wives and children will become plunder. Would it not be better for us to go back to Egypt? So they said to one another, Let us appoint a leader and return to Egypt. Then Moses and Aaron fell face down before the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel. Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes and said to the whole congregation of Israel, The land we passed through and explored is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he will bring us into this land, a land flowing with milk and honey, and he will give it to us. Only do not rebel against the Lord, and do not be afraid of the people of the land, for they will be like bread for us. Their protection has been removed, and the Lord is with us. Do not be afraid of them. But the whole congregation threatened to stone Joshua and Caleb. Then the glory of the Lord appeared to all the Israelites at the tent of meeting. And the Lord said to Moses, How long will this people treat me with contempt? How long will they refuse to believe in me, despite all the signs I have performed among them? I will strike them with a plague and destroy them, and I will make you into a nation greater and mightier than they are. But Moses said to the Lord, The Egyptians will hear of it, for by your strength you brought this people from among them. And they will tell it to the inhabitants of this land. They have already heard that you, O Lord, are in the midst of this people, that you, O Lord, have been seen face to face, that your cloud stands over them, and that you go before them in a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. If you kill this people as one man, the nations who have heard of your fame will say, Because the Lord was unable to bring this people into the land he swore to give them, he has slaughtered them in the wilderness. So now I pray, may the power of my Lord be magnified. Just as you have declared, the Lord is slow to anger and abounding in loving devotion, forgiving iniquity and transgression. Yet he will by no means leave the guilty unpunished, he will visit the iniquity of the fathers upon their children to the third and fourth generation. Pardon, I pray, the iniquity of this people, in keeping with the greatness of your loving devotion. Just as you have forgiven them ever since they left Egypt. I have pardoned them as you requested, the Lord replied. Yet as surely as I live and as surely as the whole earth is filled with the glory of the Lord. Not one of the men who have seen my glory and the signs I performed in Egypt and in the wilderness yet have tested me and disobeyed me these 10 times, not one will ever see the land that I swore to give their fathers. None of those who have treated me with contempt will see it. But because my servant Caleb has a different spirit and has followed me wholeheartedly, I will bring him into the land he has entered, and his descendants will inherit it. Now since the Amalekites and Canaanites are living in the valleys, turn back tomorrow and head for the wilderness along the route to the Red Sea. Then the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, How long will this wicked congregation grumble against me? I have heard the complaints that the Israelites are making against me. So tell them, As surely as I live, declares the Lord, I will do to you exactly as I heard you say. Your bodies will fall in this wilderness, all who were numbered in the census, everyone 20 years of age or older, because you have grumbled against me. Surely none of you will enter the land in which I swore to settle you, except Caleb son of Jephunneh and Joshua son of Nun. But I will bring your children, whom you said would become plunder, into the land you have rejected, and they will enjoy it. As for you, however, your bodies will fall in this wilderness. Your children will be shepherds in the wilderness for 40 years, and they will suffer for your unfaithfulness until the last of your bodies lies in the wilderness. In keeping with the 40 days you spied out the land, you shall bear your guilt 40 years a year for each day, and you will experience my alienation. I, the Lord, have spoken, and I will surely do these things to this entire wicked congregation, which has conspired against me. They will meet their end in the wilderness, and there they will die. So the men Moses had sent to spy out the land, who had returned and made the whole congregation grumble against him by bringing out a bad report about the land, those men who had brought out the bad report about the land were struck down by a plague before the Lord. Of those men who had gone to spy out the land, only Joshua son of Nun and Caleb son of Jephunneh remained alive. And when Moses relayed these words to all the Israelites, the people mourned bitterly. Early the next morning they got up and went up toward the ridge of the hill country. We have indeed sinned, they said, but we will go to the place the Lord has promised. But Moses said, "Why are you transgressing the commandment of the Lord? This will not succeed. Do not go up, lest you be struck down by your enemies, because the Lord is not among you. For there the Amalekites and Canaanites will face you, and you will fall by the sword. Because you have turned away from the Lord, he will not be with you." But they dared to go up to the ridge of the hill country, though neither Moses nor the ark of the covenant of the Lord moved from the camp. Then the Amalekites and Canaanites who lived in that part of the hill country came down, attacked them, and routed them all the way to Hormah. Mark 5 verses 21 to 43. When Jesus had again crossed by boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him beside the sea. A synagogue leader named Jairus arrived, and seeing Jesus, he fell at his feet and pleaded with him urgently, "My little daughter is near death. Please come and place your hands on her, so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him, and a large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had suffered from bleeding for 12 years. She had borne much agony under the care of many physicians and had spent all she had, but to no avail. Instead, her condition had only grown worse. When the woman heard about Jesus, she came up through the crowd behind him and touched his cloak. For she kept saying, "If only I touch his garments, I will be healed." Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she sensed in her body that she was healed of her affliction. At once Jesus was aware that power had gone out from him. Turning to the crowd, he asked, "Who touched my garments?" His disciples answered, "You can see the crowd pressing in on you, and yet you ask, 'Who touched me?'" But he kept looking around to see who had done this. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him trembling in fear, and she told him the whole truth. "Daughter," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free of your affliction." While he was still speaking, messengers from the house of Jairus arrived and said, "Your daughter is dead, why bother the teacher anymore?" But Jesus overheard their conversation and said to Jairus, "Do not be afraid, just believe." And he did not allow anyone to accompany him except Peter, James, and John the brother of James. When they arrived at the house of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw the commotion and the people weeping and wailing loudly. He went inside and asked, "Why all this commotion and weeping? The child is not dead, but asleep." And they laughed at him. After he had put them all outside, he took the child's father and mother and his own companions, and went in to see the child. Taking her by the hand, Jesus said, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, get up." Immediately the girl got up and began to walk around. She was 12 years old, and at once they were utterly astounded. Then Jesus gave strict orders that no one should know about this, and he told them to give her something to eat.